So I went to my last 40k tournament of the year. There is one more in December, but I'm not going to be able to make it. So this is my last tournament before the GT season starts back up in January. And I did pretty well this time. This is the best performance I've had at a tournament since 8th edition, probably. And so here is my report. So the event was a one-day RTT, but it did have 4 rounds, which is a little bit excessive, I think. 4 rounds is a lot in one day. But it is what it is. So the I had bought with me a slightly upgraded version of my previous Emperor's Children build, which I have talked about before. But just for a brief list overview, we had Lucius the Eternal as the Warlord. He was with 5 Legionaries. We had Fabius Bile with 10 Chosen. We had 2 Chaos Lords, one with the Mark of Legend and one with the War Master's Gift. The War Master's Gift Lord was with 5 Legionaries. The Mark of Legend was with 5 Chosen. We had 10 Cultists, 2 5-man Noise Marine squads, a 5-man Nemesis Claw squad, 3 Chaos Rhinos, and 3 units of 2 Obliterators. We were running Veterans of the Long War, so that's the one that gives us Chaos Oath of Moment. Key strats being the reactive move and the Armor of Contempt adjacent. And so I went into this with a fair few games under my belt with this list, but these RTTs are more used by most people locally, more as just like a training thing for the actual GTs and stuff like that. So, and I have some thoughts on this list of what sort of worked and what didn't this time, and things I kind of need to change, but overall the list performed pretty well. A few comments about this list, like before we really start going into everything. I have learned that this list is extremely unforgiving. Like, you make even little mistakes in this, it can torpedo your entire game plan. Specifically movement-related ones, the list is fairly immobile. There's not a whole lot of ways to reposition yourselves in this list once you've put down, because a lot of Legionaries who can't advance and charge, and then, like, Obliterators, for example, once they teleport in, they're stuck moving 4 inches a turn. They're stuck moving 4 inches a turn, which is kind of slow. And even with the advance and shoot stratagem, they're still a bit slow, and once they're down, they're kind of down. I know their range is 24 inches and they can indirect you once a game, but ultimately, yeah, that was a few issues I had once some Obliterators came down. And the other thing was, once the Obliterators are shooting the target that's not Oath of Moment, they suddenly become like the worst unit in history, and it is what it is. So, this was a 16-player RTT. Was it 18 players, actually? Anyway, doesn't really matter. And so, in round 1, I was paired into Jay and his Death Guard. Although I say Death Guard, this really was kind of Death Guard in name only. This was a really weird list, and it tied 3 games. He went 0-3-1. Like, he tied 3 games, won no games, and lost 1 game. So anyway, clearly the list isn't that bad, but it's just bizarre. So he had Mortarion. He had Typhus, who was on his own. He had a 20-man unit of Poxwalkers, a 10-man unit of Poxwalkers, 2 10-man Cultist squads, 3 Predator Destructors, and then he had an allied in Knight Despoiler, but it didn't have any melee weapons. It was like all ranged weapons, and all like anti-infantry range weapons. And then he had a Great Unclean one, a Beast of Nurgle, and 2 3-man Nurgling squads. And that's the list. So, right off the bat, I was like, this list is a pretty weird matchup for me, because he doesn't have a whole lot of infantry that I... Like, my list trades really well into, like, Marines. There's no Marine equivalents in this list. It's all just Hordes or tanks. Like, he has, like, 3 Super Heavies, and then 3 tanks. Oh, he had 2 forwarded Bloat Drones as well. So, 5 tanks. So, it was just incredibly armoured Death Guard. And so, going into this, I was a little bit like, oh, this is going to be tough, but it's not impossible. Like, Obliterators are great for, like, focusing one big monster down a turn with the Oath, Focus of Hatred, from that Black Legion detachment. So, the mission for this one was Terraform, I believe, which is one I've never really played before. The missions in this RTT were kind of They were a little bit unique missions. I hadn't run a few of them before, and there were some questions with people. But so it was Terraform, Crucible Battle, and Stalwarts. So Stalwarts is the one where Battle Line can still shoot and do an action, which I had a lot of Battle Line. I have like 5 Battle Line units here, 2 of which are shooting units, which is very nice. Jay, on the other hand, had no Battle Line, which is something I found with a lot of opponents in this tournament. They basically had no Battle Line, and in Game 3, which we'll get to later, the fact that he had no Battle Line actually lost him the game, basically. So don't sleep on Battle Line, I guess, especially when your tournament pack is available ahead of time and you can see what the missions are. Anyway, so Terraform is the one where there's a bunch of objectives and you can terraform them and you get some bonus victory points based on if you control an objective that you've terraformed this game. It's a bit wacky, but anyway. So as far as deployments go, I sort of spread out across the board to try and fight effectively each objective, because I have 3 rhinos, and these guys can kind of basically get one little... I can sort of focus a third of my list on each corner, and then the obliterators can come in to force concentrate wherever I don't need it. I think I deployed an obliterator on the board, but put 2 in reserve, I think. I might have put all 3 of them in reserve this game, I can't actually remember. And so basically I had Lucius and one of the Noise Marine squads up the top. I had the Chosen with... I had the Chosen with the other Noise Marines down in the bottom, and then I had the Lord of the Legionaries and the Nemesis Claw in the middle. So this was a bit of a skew into me because of the contagion range, getting -1 toughness. Everybody's winning me on 2s basically, and it really was kind of this was going to be a tough matchup, to be honest. So basically, he had great board control because his cultists can scout, and I think he went first. I can check this actually. I believe my opponent went first. Okay, it doesn't actually tell me he went first. But anyway, so anyway, basically, on turn 1, he got on a bunch of objectives, and started trying terraforming them, because he had, a lot of his tanks moved pretty fast. Like, his bloat drone just flew onto one of the objectives. His Great Unclean one advanced towards one of the objectives, but didn't get on it. He managed to scout a bunch of cultists into the middle, and get on the objective. He then, he got containment, I believe, on turn 1, and scouted, well, they'd already scouted. His second squad of cultists came down the bottom to contain. Up the top, he moved in with another bloat drone and a big horde of 20 poxwalkers. 10 of poxwalkers were left behind on his home objective just to screen me out and keep it. Typhus was put into reserves on his own. Mortarion, the Predators, and the Knight were all kind of just in the middle, and sort of went towards the middle just to turn the central battlefield into a blender, effectively. So on my first turn, I knew I really needed to... I did deploy an obliterator on the board to stop his cultists. That was the reason. Because I knew that he was going to, especially with this mission, I was like, I'm going to be put on the back foot pretty much immediately. And so basically, on turn 1, I Oath of Momented his cultists in the middle that were terraforming, which was a little bit overkill, I think. It actually worked out for me in the end, but I really shouldn't have. I really should have Oath his voted bloat drone. And basically, my obliterators popped in direct and shot them, and then a bunch of Noise Marines got out of a Rhino and also shot them. And we just cleared them out and stopped in terraforming. My Lord in the south corner of the board also managed to get out of his Rhino and charge the voted bloat drone. And that's a lie, sorry. That was the Lord with the Legionaries. The Lord with the Chosen must have been put in the middle. I'm trying to remember now. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it was the Lord with the Legionaries was in the south. And he managed to get out and charge the bloat drone and kill it and stop it from terraforming as well. Yeah, it was the Lord of the Legionaries, because that's why I wanted the 5-up dev wounds by oathing him, but unfortunately I couldn't see him to move the oath to him when the cultist died. But turn 1 was alright. We picked up the bloat drone, we picked up the cultists, and stopped him from terraforming either of them. And I think we got onto the top objective and started trying to terraform it with a squad of Noise Marines. On the Death Guard turn 2, he basically just completely took over the middle of the board. He started popping my rhinos. He killed my legionaries and lord in the south with the Great and Clean one, which, that's alright, they kind of done their job. Up in the north, he sent the bloat drones and the poxwalkers onto that objective to stop me from terraforming it. And I didn't score great in turn 2. I actually think Typhus might have deep struck in now as well on turn 2. To get behind enemy lines. No, he behind enemy lines on turn 3, so I can't remember. The Beast of Nurgle stayed in reserve anyway. And so then I was basically on my turn 2. I'd lost a few units, but he'd failed to kill a lot of stuff. Like he'd failed to kill my Noise Marines. Like there was one left, I think. But he did take the objective, so I couldn't terraform it. And so basically, my turn 2, I was staring down 3 absolutely massive monsters. I was like, I have to kill one of them or I lose. So I Oath-Momented Mortarion, and the entire army basically got out of their transports. I think even Fabius went right into the middle of the board. Yeah. And so all my obliterators came in and just shot the shit out of Mortarion. And then combined with that, plus the combat, we killed Mortarion, which was nice. We managed to kill him. We did overexpose ourselves to the clapback from the Knight and all the Predators. Up in the top, Lucius and his legionaries, got out and killed the bloat drone that was there, and then everybody got stuck in trying to kill the poxwalkers, which was really took a lot of effort. I believe my Nemesis Claw got out now on this turn as well and went into the poxwalkers, and they kind of just got stuck there forever trying to kill them. Now this was huge actually, because my opponent, ironically, would have, I don't know if, yeah, he probably would have won the game. The Nemesis Claw turned off Insane Bravery on the Poxwalkers, and they made it so that he couldn't Insane Bravery them, and then he failed the leadership check, which gave me that objective, which was nice. But anyway, down in the south, he was doing some actions. So my Noise Marines, my second squad of Noise Marines got out and cleared out his last cultists, while a Predator got on that objective, so the Great and Clean one could leave it. That's right. And so we killed Mortarion, and that was kind of turn 2, which was nice, but I knew the clapback was going to be really, really bad. But with Mortarion gone, Mortarion was kind of irrelevant to this list. I think you could have replaced him with a lot of other stuff and been a lot better off. But anyway, so the Knight came crashing over a wall, and then the Noise Marines reactor moved back into their... No, that's a different game. So anyway, I took a bunch of casualties on turn 2, on turn 3, but we did end up clearing up the Poxwalkers in the north eventually, and we did bring down the Knight. I basically just took control of the centre of the board, moving in, with the Lord with the Legionaries, Fabius's units, and the Obliterators survived long enough to continue to help. We brought the Knight down. Typhus kept making a play for our home objective, but we managed to time up with Cultists for the rest of the game. He did kill... I think he wiped a squad of a Blitz actually on his own, which was annoying, because they did a bunch of damage to themselves with Dark Packs, so he could basically just come in and pop them both. My Great and Clean one went into my Noise Marine squad and cleared it, but it got to the point where basically I controlled the middle and the top objective. He controlled the bottom one. He cleared out my Chosen, but Fabius got back up. The Lord and Legionary survived. We popped a couple of his Predators, and the game, then we got a little bit rushed for time at the end, so the last turn kind of just got shortcutted, and we just drew cards and saw what could score what. We killed Typhus to get Assassinate. I had to send my last squad of Obliterators back to kill him, but combined with shooting and that, and then they piled back onto my home objective, I went second, so I scored very, very nicely in the last turn, and then I ended up winning 72-70. So at my last tournament, this would have just been a win. At this tournament, it was a tie, and I think a very well-deserved tie. Jay played a really tight game. It was super tight. Having to deal with those 3 big monsters plus all that tanks, my list just doesn't have enough anti-tank, which is something that I say every time. But the problem is that, like, I can kill, like, 3 super heavies in a game, or, like, I can kill enough tanks in a game, but when it's, like, 100% mechanized, I start to struggle. And, but I did manage to get a tie, which isn't the worst way to go into a tournament. And the last time I played against Jay with his Elder, he won 11-9, back almost a year ago now. So I was kind of glad that I managed to just get that extra tournament point. But anyway, so a tie going in. I think the list performed pretty well. As I said, I think I was just a little bit outgunned. And I'm sure there was a few mistakes. I don't remember this game amazingly well, unfortunately, to give a particularly in-depth analysis. But overall, yeah, I had to kill something every turn. I think he maybe fed me too much on turn 1. I got a bit lucky here and there, but overall, as I said, I was saying earlier about the Poxwalkers. I'm like, if they didn't battle shock, he would have won, but I think it still would have been a tie, right? Is the difference. And actually, also would have allowed me to get overwhelming force, which I then couldn't get because they didn't technically own the objective. So anyway, there was a bunch of stuff like that. As far as actual score diff, because I actually have the game on my phone for this one. I won on primary, getting 38 to his 30, but he beat me on secondary, getting 30 to my 24. And because I just had a turn where I just didn't score anything, which was huge. It was my turn. It was turn 2. I just didn't score any secondaries. Like I just got very unlucky because that's right. I had to sabotage. Which he killed the sabotaging thing. Now, the reason I kind of kept and I said I should have pitched sabotage. I was like, I was a moron. But I realized the reason I did it was to force him to have to shoot it was a 2 health Chaos Rhino. I was like, it forced him to have to put firepower into it, which helped me out elsewhere. And that's the type of decision making that I think is kind of important here. Because in his mind, he could have wiped some more of my actually useful units, but then I would have scored a little bit extra on points, and it's that kind of trade-off. So he had to invest some time and effort into killing that Rhino, and only his Knight could do it, so it meant more firepower going away. And then yeah, it was an overwhelming force, and he only had 1 unit on an objective that I could get to, and it was the bloody 20-man Poxwalker squad, and then I battle shocked them, so I couldn't even get it. And so anyway, meaning I had to kill his Knight, who was on the center objective. Then in the next turn, I did score it eventually, but that was big. That was big, getting a turn of nothing. I should have just pitched sabotage for the CP. As I said, I kind of wanted to force him to shoot the Rhino. So anyway, very tight game, super close. Obviously, it was a tie. And so we went into round 2, and I played into Rick and his Chaos Knights. Now, Chaos Knights I'm just voodooed into. I've never won against Chaos Knights. I hate this army. And it doesn't help that Rick is a very good player. He's a member of Stat Check, which kind of says it all. And he basically just only plays Chaos Knights. He came second in this tournament overall, I believe. And so he had in his list 3 big knights. I can't tell you what they were, because I don't know what all the Chaos Knights are. And then he had 6 little knights. And we were playing the Ritual, which is an awful matchup into knights for me, because it's like, I just can't, and he went first too, which didn't help here. So I just can't score primary. I literally didn't score primary all game, because a knight would just bum rush me, get on my objective, I'd kill it. Then another knight would just bum rush me, get on my objective, right? And because unlike against like normal squads, when I kill a bunch of your, say, because a knight has 10 OC, so say 5 Space Marines came at me and I killed 3 of them, did 6 damage to them, right? Yeah, I'm now winning that objective because you're down to 4 OC. The knight stays at 10, right? Is like, which is a huge issue. I got to the point where I said I should never have even made. I think only 2 ritual markers were ever made throughout the entire game. I got to the point where I said, I just shouldn't have made mine. I was like, because all I'm doing is scoring you more points. So it was a brutal game. I lost 20-0. The score was something like, I don't know, like 70-20 or something like that. It was brutal. I got a few secondaries here and there. It started off okay for me. He kind of got a bit arrogant with his knights, and I know I made him sweat a little bit in turns 2 and 3, because he kind of just like, he just deployed on the line in the hopes that he would just advance a charge far enough, and he actually didn't get any combats on turn 1, which was fine, because the only combats he could get was Chaos Rhinos, and I was like, this is fine, you just kill Chaos Rhinos, and combat, the guys pop out, right? And so, on turn 1, I managed to pick up one of the big knights. On turn 2, I managed to pick up one of the big knights, and then I killed, I think, 2 of the baby ones, and then that was it, because I was just decimated by that point. He made a few good charges. There's not much to say about this game, really. He made a few good charges here and there that let him get right into my backline and just wipe out my firebase. I didn't deploy any obliterators on the board this time. They all went into deep strike. And ultimately, yeah, it was an absolute blowout. I got absolutely smashed. I barely did anything. There was one moment that could have maybe salvaged my game plan a little bit. It's where a 2 health knight managed to just YOLO all his saves against an Overwatch. I got like 2 or 3 hits on an Overwatch, and like with lethal hits, right? So they're just auto wounds. And so and then he just like made a bunch of 5-ups and survived. And I was like, oh well. Because that would have been somewhat. I would have had another group of obliterators on turn 4, which would have let me kill another knight maybe. But like, it doesn't matter. I was fighting over my own objective, and half my army is just irrelevant in this matchup, right? It's just completely pointless. Like, pretty much, like, the Nemesis Claw were pointless. They do nothing. To be honest, Lucius is kind of pointless. Fights first, who cares? He's strength 5, right? Like, what's he going to do? The Lords are okay at killing knights. Even Fabius's unit, sure, they managed to bring down one of the knights with plink damage, but it's just like, anybody could do that. So, when your entire army is lethal hits and rerolls, it's like... So yeah, as I said, like going into turn 1, picking up a big knight in turn 1 was huge, but then I killed the second big knight in turn 2, and then after that it was just like up in my ass with the thing. And we were talking about the game afterwards, and he did say that that he didn't think I played that badly, and I was like, yeah, but like, what am I supposed to do about this matchup? I just don't know what to do in it. I don't have the firepower, especially going second. It's like I couldn't score anything because I can't out OC you on anything anymore, right? It's like, which going against knights historically, that's what you do. You just out OC them, but now they have so much objective control. Anyway, so a very bad game for me going into turn 2. But I was like, I haven't lost every game, so I was still pretty positive. And as I said, Rick's a pretty good player locally, so I don't feel too bad losing to him. You know what I mean? Like, that's the way it is. If I get 20-0'd, I at least want to get 20-0 by somebody who's good at the game. So I was, so in round 3, I was paired into Josh and his Blood Angels. Now, Blood Angels is one of those matchups that I kind of want, because his list seems quite good against Blood Angels, and this was another very, very tight game. So Josh was playing Blood Angels. It was basically the index attachment, so he got like bonuses on the charge or whatever. His list consisted of a Brutalist Dreadnought, a big floating Land Raider thing, Gladius I think it's called, I don't know, New Space Marine stuff, sorry. He had an Assassin, he had Lematis with a big 10-man brick of what they called Death Company. He had a couple of little Death Company squads with jetpacks here and there. He had a big unit of Blade Champions or something with a Judicar, so they had fights first, and then he had some other unit that was nasty. Oh, Sanguine Guard, or whatever they're called. And he had one unit of Battle Line Space Marines. This is where the Battle Line came in, because for this mission... Oh, yeah, I said the ritual, didn't I? For mission 2. So this mission was... This mission was Linchpin, which is the one where you get more points if you keep your home objective, and raise banners, which really, really helps with Battle Line. And he kind of poo-pooed raise banners, because I'm like, oh, I have a lot of Battle Line. He had one. I won the game because of raise banners, that's how tight this was. Because I had so much Battle Line, I scored it every turn, pretty much. It did get to a point where I actually didn't have, I couldn't get on an objective that I hadn't already raised the banner on. But, well, I didn't win the game because of it, but it took the game from being a tie in my favor to being an 11-9 win in my favor because of raised banners, which is kind of funny. And because he raised banners once, I think, in the very last turn of the game, and I don't know why he didn't Anyway, he had some scouts and some other stuff actually thinking about it. Some infiltrators. Yeah. So he had a few other things. So basically, he got first turn, which I think was good for me, because I want the Blood Angels to have to come to me. I did deploy one squad of Obliterators on the board as well. And so yeah, he got raised. He got first turn, and he just zoomed his assassin right into my deployment zone, right next to Fabius' squad. And I realized he oathed Fabius because he drew Cull the Horde on turn 1, and I was like, you can get Cull the Horde. It's like, because Fabius Bile's big 10-man chosen unit counts for Cull. And so, and I knew he was going to try and just basically go in, snipe Fabius, which is completely pointless. I did tell him that. I was like, he just gets back up. Like, don't do that. And then send Lamatis and company in. And so I was like, well, I just reactive move Fabius and co back 6 inches. Because basically the way I deployed was, I deployed Lucius and some guys up in the top. He'd infiltrated some scouts on the top objective, so I just put Lucius over there. I'd put another Rhino down the bottom with the Lord with the Chosen and some more Noise Marines. I put the Cultists on my home backfield. And then the center was where I had some Obliterators. I had the big 10-man Chosen brick, and then I had a Rhino pressed against the wall with the Lord with Warmaster's Gift and the Nemesis Claw. Were both put in the middle. And this is how I deployed the army for Game 4 as well. Exactly the same. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess. And so I just zoomed Fabius and co back. So basically he couldn't charge them anymore. And so he's like, oh. It's like, well, this kind of changes things. He had to send a unit into the middle to do an action or something like that. Actually, that's a lie. He had to go into the middle to area denial, I think, is what he got on turn 1. But so Lamatis and company just stayed still at that point. And so his assassin then just went down and tried to take my home objective, but he just doesn't have enough attacks. So he killed like 4 cultists, I think, or something like that. But he just didn't have enough attacks to actually do anything. And that was Dark Angel, Blood Angel, turn 1. On Chaos turn 1, Fabius and co came down and just killed the assassin. Because I realized these guys are so fast, and he's going to come to me. I was like, I don't care about mispositioning down here. This is great. The Chaos Lord and his legionaries got out of the Rhino and went right into the middle of the board and just deleted the unit that was area denying. And I knew I was baiting, but this was a deliberate bait. I was like, this is kind of a juicy unit. It's like 180 points in my army that you can just come kill. I also sent the Nemesis Claw into the center to do a Established Locus, because that's what I drew. Lucius went up top, but he actually failed the charge, if I remember rightly. Or was that against the space? Both game 3 and 4 were extremely similar, so I'm actually struggling to remember now which is which. Basically, at some point, Lucius killed the scout squad in the top and just took that objective and sat there all game raising banners. The Obliterators shot somebody in direct and just killed them. And then I sort of moved some guys up on the bottom flank to try and get some pressure. Basically, this game sort of just became a game of chicken, where it was who was going to overcommit first and lose. He sent his Brutalist Dreadnought down into the middle. So I think that on Blood Angel's turn 2, he just went full send, and he just took the middle of the board. My Nemesis Claw ran back to their transport with the reactor move and got back in. The Space Marines in the middle just died. And he really pushed up in my face. And so basically I just brought in the Obliterators, and we managed to crack the Brutalist Dreadnought open eventually. We killed all the Death Company. I lost the fight in the right flank against the Blade Guard and the Sanguine Guard. I took the top one. We then managed to basically take over the middle of the board with, once we killed Lamatis' unit, we managed to take over the middle of the board with Fabius and some more Obliterators. Another group of Obliterators came in and just indirected the shit out of the guys on his objective, taking them down to one guy with 1 wound, if I'm rightly, which was annoying, and then managed to battle shock him, which was really big. Because he failed the battle shock test, he didn't score Linchpin for a turn, which won me the game, basically. He then got Defend Stronghold, so he had to uppy downy his last scout squad to go back on his home objective to take it, which basically just took them out the fight for anything meaningful. He then basically went into the middle, and it was a bloody affair in the middle, but I did manage to come out on top. Obliterators are no slouch in close combat, and people don't really respect that. And so, yeah, we managed to kill pretty much all of his Blade Guard, and we managed to kill, I think that's right, he did the way the Blood Angels work is they have stratagems, and then they can battle shock themselves to get an extra bonus. So he battle shocked himself with his Sanguine Guard. They went to the middle, they wiped someone. Nemesis Claw, maybe? I can't remember. Sorry, this isn't the best battle report in history. But then they didn't take the objective, which means I kept it, and then I killed them all, and then we basically took him down to, like, the Judicar, and then one guy. We killed his Brutalis Dreadnought. His Gladius tank, that's what it's called, managed to contain. But by the end of turn 5, the Blood Angels were basically tabled, and we still had quite a lot. He had like 2 scouts chilling on his home objective. One of them was at 1 health. He had a slightly damaged Gladius tank and a Judicar, which I just mopped up on turn 5. And I managed to win 76-70. So once again, very close game. There was a few key things here that kind of went wrong for my opponent. One is he just never scored Raised Banners. He scored Raised Banners like on the last turn when he could have just pooped out his guys and got it earlier. Like, I understand you're going to do the same objective once, but like, you only have 1 battle line unit, and yeah. Then managing to battle shock that scout is another one, and then which was huge, and then managed to deny him Cull the Horde on turn 1. There was a lot that kind of went wrong for my opponent here. Very tight game, but this list I've learned really plays tight games. It doesn't win by a very large margin normally. And, yeah. So we were 1 win, 1 draw, and 1 loss, which I'm pretty happy with. But then there's a 4th round, and I was paired into Space Wolves. And game 4 was really weird. It was Burden of Trust, Prepared Positions, and Search and Destroy. Everyone didn't understand what that was, really. And so Burden of Trust is like, you don't score your home objective, you only score the middle ones, and then you can assign guards to objectives, and providing they keep the objective, they get extra VP. Very bizarre. And the twist was that like battle lines can go to ground or heroic intervene for free, which did come up. So anyway, I was playing against Tavis and his Space Wolves. So he was playing Champions of Russ. And in his list, he had Bjorn the Fell-Handed, he had Murderfang, he had 2 big 15-man bricks of whatever the heck the basic troop is for Space Wolves, each with a Librarian. He had some Lieutenant with Lone Op. He had a unit of Thunderwolf Cavalry. He had some big boy that could Deep Strike and basically call a war once a game. He had some Scouts, he had some Infiltrators. He had some Blade Guard. And I think that's it. I'm struggling to remember now. And this, I think the lesson we take away from this one is he kept asking me what was scaring my army, blah 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 blah. And I kept saying things, and he kept kind of just dismissing them as not been a threat. And I'd be like, no, like this is a serious threat to you, and he just didn't care. When your opponent tells you something in their army is basically not to be fucked with, you should probably believe them. Because, like, first off, he asked me how much shooting I had. I said, well, not much. I have all these obliterators, and I have, like, some noise marines, right? He's like, I'm not too worried about obliterators. You fucking should be worried about obliterator shooting, especially with rerolls, because they're just going to mulch everything you have. Like, they don't have to see you to shoot you once a game, right? It's like, so, and they could deep strike. It's like, so you better start screening out 2 guys, right? It's like, because they're pretty hard to screen, because there's only 2 of them. So they can come into a lot of places where I know they're on big bases, on like 50 more bases, but like, anyway. So, but no, and then it was legionaries as well. He kept dismissing them as being a basic troop, and I kept trying to explain to him, like, they reroll all wounds in combat if you're on an objective, and they have 2 power fists per 5 guys, and if they have a chaos sword, but just kind of fell on deaf ears, and so anyway, and there was a lot of this kind of, I don't know, this attitude from my opponent that, like, chaos units, so just don't worry about it, mate, and really you should worry about it, because Chaos punches above its weight class every time, which is something that a lot of people who don't play against Chaos Marines often don't understand. Is, yeah, you may look at an opponent's list and think, oh, it's just a bunch of Space Marines running around. Yeah, but these are Space Marines with, everybody has either lethal or sustained hits, depending on the situation, right? Which means that they can kill, they chip vehicles to death really easily, they kill hordes really, right? Like, they are adaptable, and sure, they blow their own heads off occasionally with Dark Packs. But, ultimately, you know... Anyway, so... This game was a crushing victory for me. My opponent did make a number of misplays that I think kind of gave me the game here. So, my turn 1 was pretty dismal. I went second again, I think, which once again actually helped in this matchup. Also, this was a fairly similar list to the original, to the Blood Angels list I just played, in a lot of ways, so I was kind of a bit, I just had basically a practice game into this list as well. So I deployed exactly the same as I deployed against Dark Angels. And, so, I got first turn, sorry, this time. I did get first turn, so it's a bit different. And this is the game where Lucius failed his charge into the, scouts on the top. On turn 1. My Obliterators also basically completely whiffed into one of his big... I deployed one on the board. So I indirected this big group of like 15 dudes, but combined with a 6-up Feel No Pain and the 4-up Invulnerable from the Librarian, which I pointed out, he kept trying to dissuade from shooting him. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm like, the Obliterators have AP2, but because it's indirect, you gain cover... It's like, so you're saving on a 4 anyway. I was like, so the Invulnerables are irrelevant. But he just made like a billion, like he just made so many 6-up Feel No Pains. It was actually insane. Like, I think he made something like 6 out of 10 6-up Feel No Pains. We killed like 2 dudes on turn, from my once per game indirect. So my turn 1 was pretty dismal. Lucius failed his charge. And yeah, we were just kind of, not in a best spot, but we were in a decent spot mobility-wise. I also had to... I got air denial, that's right. So my Nemesis Claw got out of their transport and ran into the middle. They were put in so that they could throw the reactive move, and I explained this to my opponent. I was like, they can, for 1 CP, they can run back within 3 inches of the Rhino and then get in. Right, it's like, that's the way that I've basically most been using the reactive move, is in that way. It's very, very nice. And then this is when my opponent kind of fucked up in the exact same way the Blood Angels guy did. He kind of started to try and all-in my Chosen, the big brick with Fabius, which I'm learning this is just a bait unit now, apparently. And so he started bringing a bunch of guys round to get in at them. And he put Bjorn so that he was basically vecting my move strat, but I had 3 CP because I pitched a command point. I pitched a secondary card to get an extra command point. And so yeah, he also then started to take the he didn't really move in on the bottom flank that much. I think he put some scouts on it, and so basically he moved his guys around. And the way that I had it was Fabius was against this big wall in the middle of the thing. The center was basically 2 massive 3-story ruins, and then either side of an objective. So, but basically, then I just reaction moved. Sure, I paid 2 CP for it, but this 2 CP was like game winning. Instead of reactive moving the Nemesis Claw back into their transport like he thought I was going to do, and like he was trying to movement block me from doing, I was like, no, I'm just going to put them on the wall in between you and the Chosen, which means now this big unit of guys has to charge the Nemesis Claw, which I don't care about dying particularly, and now Fabius can just charge you next turn and wipe you. I don't know why he didn't see that coming. I guess it was 4th game after a long day of 40k, but it's like, now, was I a little bit cheeky? Should I have said I can just put them on the wall? I don't think so. Like, I'm minded about the move. Right, it's like, so... Yeah, so I just put them on the wall, and now you can't charge my guys. You can charge these 5 fucking Night Lord dudes, but who cares? Which he did, and he killed them, obviously. He also charges my Rhino for some reason. I don't know why. And that was kind of it for Space Force turn 1. He just didn't do a whole lot. So, Emperor's Children turn 2, we got out. Lucius made his charge now and just wiped those scouts and just sat there. Which is basically all Lucius does, is just basically goes to an objective, kills whoever's on it, and then just throws the gauntlet down and says, alright, come fight me, please. I have fights first, so. And I'm getting wounded rolls because you're on an objective if you fight me, so who wants to go first, right? Like, it's kind of funny. So, anyway, and then we wiped. We stopped Sabotage on turn 2, didn't? No, that was the Blood Angels. Sorry, these games are so similar. Anyway, and so then basically in the middle, my Chaos Lord and his buddies got out. Did he? I think he charged some Thunderwolves in as well, actually. And so the Chaos Lord and his Legionaries got out. I went and took the bottom flank. We killed Murderfang with Obliterators, because he kind of talked him up as this absolute murder machine, and so I was like, well, okay, he only has 8 wounds, I'll just kill him. So yeah, we just killed Murderfang, and then we killed his big 15-man brick in the middle, and yeah. So then Space Wolves turn 2 happens, and he basically pulls out all the stops. I have a ton of guys on every objective. I'm absolutely in a dominating position. I've killed quite a lot of his army. Now, I had forgot that a lot of his guys were in reserves, so he started bringing scouts in and stuff like that. And he did basically, and then he went after my home objective as well, which in this matchup doesn't do anything. You don't score the home objective. You can guard it for 2 CP around, I guess, but 2 VP around, but like I can guard any objective. So anyway, so he did. He gets my home objective with the guy. He can basically call a mini war is his whole thing. And so he basically then puts his oath target onto Fabius Bile's unit. He sends in his Blade Guard, he sends in his Thunderwolf Cavalry, sends in a bunch of stuff. I heroic intervene with the Lord for free because he's with Battle Line. He then charges them with some assault guys, and he really whiffed on the mortal wounds they do on the charge here, to be fair, badly. He deep shot some guys and managed to make the 9-inch charge on some Noise Marines. Bjorn went into the Noise Marines and just killed them anyway. And then he started wiping my last squad of Chosen. The Lord somehow survived. But this is where... but then in the middle, he failed to kill Fabius, and we just turned around and wiped him, basically. And then, especially on turn 3, I just destroyed him with the Obliterators that hadn't been touched, basically. Just sort of turned the center of the board into a complete kill box. Just wiped out his Blade Guard, wiped out his Thunderwolves, wiped out his Scout guys. And then, but he realized that so basically what happens is, the guy calls a mini war. It lets him reroll charges, which is how he managed to get so many ballsy charges in. It lets him reroll charges all for his whole army, but it also gives reroll hits army-wide. And he'd forgotten this for one combat. And I'd like to really stress this. For one combat, he forgot this. So the guy who called it just wiped the cultists for some reason. But here's the thing, and he was complaining. And I heard him after the game to his friends and whatever, complaining that basically he lost because of this forgetfulness. And I kind of wish I pointed out, but I didn't want to rain on his parade. You did reroll hits against Fabius's unit, and you failed to kill them. And you know why you did? Because they were oath of momented, so you rerolled them all, because you remembered that. And Fabius, he kept saying, Fabius unit should be dead, should be dead. I was like, hang on a second. It's like, you rerolled all hits against him, because he was oathed. You didn't forget that. It's like, and you failed to kill him, because, yeah, it turns out when I tell you that a unit's really hard to kill at the beginning of the game, it's hard to kill. And, it was down the south. The Chaos Lord should have died, because there's no way he would have survived that amount of attacks, without the reroll hits, And then basically after this, he was pretty much tabled. The only things he had left was some scouts and infiltrators, Bjorn, and then that big brick of like 15 guys. And he just conceded a game and just said make it a 20-0. Now I actually put it in wrong. It was 19-1, but anyway, and was just complaining about that. And I was like, well, you only forgot the real hits against the Lord. And to be honest, I would happy to just say the Lord's dead. Let's keep playing. But no, he wanted to call it. And I was like, okay, because I don't want to play against a salty opponent either. So I was like, yeah, I'm happy to call it. I get the win. So we ended up getting a very big win, and we went 1-1, 1-1. Sorry, 2-1-1. And I ended up coming 5th overall in the entire event, which was kind of cool. That's pretty good standings. So yeah, what were my takeaways from this list, from this tournament? I still can't beat Knights. I just hope I don't get put into them. If your opponent tells you something is like a dangerous unit, believe them. Don't do what Space Wolves guys did and just say nah, and then just go in anyway and then die and then get surprised. Because I remember there was a time where he was like surprised with how many attacks the Legionaries got and how much damage, because they just wiped an entire squad of Thunderwolf cavalry on their own. And he was like, that was the character. I was like, no, that was the Legionaries attacking. The character still has to go. And I was like, I told you they were dangerous, right? It's like a squad of 5 Legionaries is 6 Power Fist attacks, and then on top of that it's 12 Chainsword attacks with full wound rerolls if you're an objective. And then the Lord is attacking with his 5 to 6 either Dev Wound Power Fists or just straight up monster attacks. I can't help you if you just don't listen to me. And then I don't think he'll learn his lesson, because he just complained about forgetting to reroll hits against like a guy and stuff. I was like, nah. Also, like, be really mindful of opponents' move blocking you, right? Especially when you telegraph your turn so heavily what you're about to do. It's like, it just lets me just react. Like, reactive moves are super, super, super good. So yeah, overall, really good tournament. Very tiring to play that many games. I learned this list is super unforgiving. Super, super unforgiving. Like, you make mistakes, you lose very quickly. And when it starts to lose units, you really feel it. You're like, oh, I can't do anything anymore. It's also surprisingly non-mobile, and does struggle to kill big monsters. It can kill a few things. Like, against the Death Guard game, I killed 2 out of 3 of his big boys and a bunch of his tanks, right? And it's like, and in other games against, like, the Space Wolves didn't have any vehicles aside from the 2 Dreadnoughts, and then the Blood Angels were similar. They had a Dreadnought and they had a big tank. I didn't even touch the tank. It's like, I killed the Dreadnought, so... But it's like against other armies that have just an absolute ton of super heavy, so Knights is the main one. Yeah, I'm going to struggle. The Nemesis Claw did nothing. They did nothing. Sure, they helped out against the Poxwalkers by turning off Insane Bravery, but like, they're really bad. For 20 points more than a squad of Legionaries, I would just rather have a squad of Legionaries, or I could make them a squad of Chosen, which I think might be better. So I do need to go back to the drawing board a bit on this list, but it really felt like the fat had been trimmed, the no Hellbrute, the no Raptors, the Vindicate had been gone even. It just felt like, yeah, I have no trash units that aren't doing anything anymore, except the Nemesis Claw. Yeah, so it felt good, and I think this list is in a good spot to take to the GT next year. I don't know, though, if I'm going to be able to get any practice games in for it. And I really would like to get one practice game in with this list again before then, in between now and then, just to try and brush up a bit. But yeah, so overall, super fun tournament. I did very well this time, only losing 1 game. Now, it was a 20-0 loss. And one of the games I won, and the tie game, obviously, was super, super, super tight. Which obviously hurts your tournament standings at the end, but it was still 2 wins, 1 loss, and 1 tie, which I'm very happy with. I think this list is super fun. As I said, it's just super unforgiving. And in the hands of a better player, I think this list would be an absolute monstrosity to try and deal with. But it is, yeah, it really is very, very unforgiving to mistakes. And the stratagem pool is kind of limited to just like 1 move and then 1 defensive thing, which doesn't normally help that much. Yeah, so I don't know exactly what I want to change about the list going in. The Nemesis Claw are definitely coming out. I don't know what's going in. Because, yeah, as I said, I could put in Chosen, I could put in Legionaries, I could drop the Rhino and take something else, which does leave 1 squad of like Noise Marines or something just sort of chilling on their own, which isn't the best plan. Yeah, so we'll see. And I have been looking, I was thinking like, I'll put some Plague Marines in, and I remembered, oh wait, it's Emperor's Children. I can't. Which got me thinking, like, do I really need Lucius and the Noise Marines in this list? Could this list just go back to being just Black Legion? Because Plague Marines seem great. Because, especially in this attachment, because think about it, almost all their weapons already have lethal hits, so the fact they don't get Dark Packs is pretty much negated. But depending how you put them out, like the Plague Champion gets a Plasma Gun and a heavy, like basically a Power Fist. Then 2 of the guys can have Power Fists, and then you get either 2 Flamers and a Blight Launcher, a Flamer and a Blight Launcher. Right, it's like, and having the 2 Flamers in the unit is great in this attachment because you have the strat that lets you auto hit 6s with Flamers, which means you could very easily just be like 12 auto hits, and then you go into combat and you're like, I have 3 Power Fists in this 5-man unit. But then I remembered, oh, they have the Mark of Nurgle, which they can't be in this list. But I was like, I also don't own enough, but I could try and buy some. And I'm like, because I have rubrics, which I just don't think are that great here because they don't benefit from the reroll hits at all. They're very good in my opinion in Renegade Raiders. I really like rubrics, but I also could put a unit of Havocs in instead of the Nemesis Claw. And I do wonder if I maybe do that. But Havocs outside of Renegade Raiders just kind of suck. They're just so slow, and 4 las cannons with full hit rerolls is quite nice though. So I am thinking about that instead of the Nemesis Claw, because Havocs are the same price as Chosen now, and they would bring in some much needed anti-tank. So I don't know. We'll see where it takes me. But anyway, yeah, I was like, because if I drop Lucius and then drop both Noise Marine squads, I could replace Lucius with another Chaos Lord. I would want to upgrade his unit to another unit of Chosen probably though, because Chaos Lords kind of want the advanced charge. But Lucius is good though, and the list is going to hurt without him, because the ability to just go on an objective and say, come fight me, is really nice. And Lucius is just a primary scoring unit for me most of the time. He doesn't really do much fighting, unless anybody wants to actually come and tango with him, which nobody really does, because you have to overcommit so much to kill Lucius. It's insane. Lucius only died once in this entire tournament, and that was against the Knights where I got tabled. So, to put in perspective for you. But I do think that the Noise Marines, I really like them, but I do wonder if the Plague Marines actually do their job. And they're only 90 points for 5 Plague Marines, right? It's like, but I do like the Noise Marines as well. So we'll see. But that does mean this list kind of survives, in my opinion, the Emperor's Children Codex, which is, I kind of like the sound of that. Plague Marines do feel quite good, and especially with full hit rerolls. They're slow, sure, but they're toughness 5 with 2 OC and their battle line still. So it depends how good Noise Marines are post Emperor's Children Codex, because I do like the Noise Marines a lot right now. They're very, very, very strong, in my opinion. But anyway, so that's my thoughts. Great tournament performance for me for once, and it was a super good event. Thanks to all the local guys for running it. And yeah,